Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 4, Episode 1 of Co-Creation Station, the podcast where we talk about the law of attraction, the art of allowing, spiritual magic, the mind-body-spirit connection, and how to best enjoy this mystical, miraculous, mysterious, crazy, sometimes confounding, but always incredible journey we call life. My name is Collin. I'm a teacher, tarot oracle card reader, and I am a singer and guitarist in the band Red Treasure, and I'm located in beautiful, sunny, and lately extremely hot North Hollywood, California.
My name is Stephanie Orlina. I am a transformational life coach and I help people shift away from negative thinking and their lives transform. And today I'm in Mission Hills, California.
All right. And we want to thank you so much for listening or watching. At this time, we're posting a brand new episode every Monday morning. We really appreciate you doing whatever your platform allows you to do to support the podcast, liking us, following us, subscribing to us, leaving a comment, writing us a review. All of that helps other people find us. Each week we start off our discussion from a different jumping off point. And this week, I think, Stephanie, you said you were listening to an Abraham Hicks audio this morning.
Yes, YouTube. I love listening to them.
And we have to explain who
Go for
Abraham Hicks is.
Yeah. Abraham Hicks. So this woman named Esther Hicks channels the collective energies, which they call themselves Abraham. And so she channels them because Abraham wants to help us here who are seeking this information. And so they have come forth to assist us in living happy, healthier, wealthier, abundant lives. And so I was listening. You can find them. Just put in on YouTube or on the internet Abraham-Hicks, and you'll find a lot of their material. My go-to is YouTube. So this morning I was putting them on while I was making breakfast, and one came on, it was great, and then the next one, I forget what the title was, and I'm like, okay, this one I need to listen to, because my vibration was kind of lower. I've been worrying a little bit and having some negative thinking and stuff, and so what I heard was really awesome. And so I wrote this down because I thought, oh, we should talk about this today. And it's not bad or wrong to feel negative emotion. It's important for us to notice how we're feeling and remind ourselves that if we're feeling negative emotion, it's because the thought that caused the negative emotion is not in alignment with our higher selves. Sorry about that. Because our higher selves only focuses on what we want. All positive requests are granted, and that's what our emotions about. And I don't think a lot, like, I still have to remind myself of like why I'm having negative or positive emotion, that it's just this indicator, it's this gauge. So when I'm happy, I'm in alignment with my higher self, and when I'm feeling any kind of negative emotion, I'm out of alignment. It's only because of my thoughts are either heading in the direction of all that I've asked for, or I'm heading away. Like I've turned my back to him, and I'm, like what I was saying, I'm feeling negative emotion. I'm worried about something that's going on in my life right now. And oh man, it's not that what I want's not going to happen, but it's like I'm turning away from it and going, I don't believe it can happen. I'm just waking away from, and so I just thought it's super important because a lot of us don't know. Do you think about that when you're feeling negative emotion? I mean,
It's a good question. I mean, I'm certainly familiar, but now after listening to many, Abraham Hicks workshops, people talking about this issue with how it sort of works with the law of attraction and art of allowing. Like, I think it's an interesting question. I mean, I feel like the challenge for me has always been catching it.
well, that's one aspect.
Yeah. Because it's catching the feeling and then it's sort of tracing back in my mind, like, okay, what are the thoughts or beliefs, which is just a belief is just a thought you think all the time, that led me to feel this way. And sometimes with certain, what we're referring to right now as negative emotions, like some of them can be a freight train that's very challenging for me to slow down or stop.
That's why they say catch it early.
Yeah. Yeah. But I just as an example, I won't talk about the news story, but I haven't been watching the news much lately, which has been good. Because that tends to trigger like negative emotions for no reason, really. And then I was, I don't mean to blame YouTube, but YouTube put a news story in my suggested, you might be interested in watching this video. And before I could catch myself, it was like, oh wait, what? And then I like clicked on it, and then it made me like insanely angry, like so angry. This news story,
Yeah.
and I found myself. This was a couple days ago, and I found myself like doing a pattern of behavior that I've had before, which I don't do much anymore, which is nice. But I did this pattern again for the first time in a while, which was then I like wanted to know more about it, and then so I found more videos about this news story, and it got me angry and angrier. So I mean, it was a while. It was like 15, 20 minutes, and then I realized like it was like finding myself in a deep hole, and then looking down and seeing the shovel and realizing I'm the one that had dug the hole. Like who put me in this deep hole? This is terrible. It's like, wait, my hands are splintery. There's a shovel with a wooden handle on the ground. Sherlock, how did this happen?
Dude, that is awesome. And we all do it. Like no one else does it to us. We're all like I'm responsible for how I feel and what I think. And
that's what's weird about my.
We give that away. Like we think it's other people. It's like no, I'm the one who, whether consciously or unconsciously, decided to go down that rabbit hole, as you say, or think about what that person said.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's what's challenging to me about it is like for me, that's a pattern that I kind of learned as a younger person and then practiced over and over again, kind of not knowing what I was doing. And now the challenge is when something triggers it, like seeing that suggestion from YouTube, again, no fault to YouTube here, but it's still kind of challenging because it feels like it's almost like my brain gets on a train and I don't wake up to what's happening until we're at the station, or I'm in the, or I'm
you've arrived at the station and you've gotten on the next train that is headed towards Angry Town.
Yeah, I'm like, well,
Angry Town.
Yeah, I was gonna say we made it to Angry Town. I'm on my way to fully enraged city or something.
There you go. Oh, this is great.
So the process for me in that situation is, okay, now I'm completely pissed off about this thing.
When you notice,
I think it was drop
it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a combination of, and I'm glad you asked that because I didn't necessarily like track what I did, but I think I did two things that I think I've heard Abraham suggest actually, which is nice to know that I'm practicing these things without necessarily consciously knowing I'm doing it. One is changing my self-talk, and
how did you do that? Like what?
In this particular case, it was just talking to myself in my mind and being gentle with myself, not beating myself up for what happened.
So you recognize that, whoa, wait a minute. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
You recognize that you were super angry and that you're like, what am I doing? Like,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Just kind of, I guess, phase one is like, okay, let's review what Collin has done right now. The last 20 minutes. Okay. Quick recap of the digging or the train ride. And then it's being gentle with myself. Okay. And I can remember that. I can remember saying to myself something like, don't beat yourself up for this. Like, this is a pattern.
That is really nice.
The pattern did itself, and it's not, I mean, it's my responsibility, but it's not something I consciously decided to do. It's like something that happened, basically.
Yeah. It's like a knee-jerk reaction, right?
Yeah.
It's just kind of habitual, and like you said, doing it less and less often.
Yeah. And then essentially it was, I think the last bit of self-talk was just sort of reminding myself, why getting enraged by news stories doesn't help anything. It doesn't help me, it doesn't help other people. It's like, because I don't have any power over these things. In terms of specifically changing this global, like national or global situation, that's like completely out of my hands for the most part. And then I think the phase two was what Abraham calls changing the channel.
Mhm.
is I was so angry about this thing. I guess the option at that point is to try to, I could potentially try to talk myself into a better feeling place about that topic, if it's possible. But I knew that this topic, there was no like talking myself into a happy town about it. It was
Oh
like,
yeah, no
if
way.
I thought about this thing, my only reaction was going to be fury.
Oh no, no, you
So
can't. Like
just
it's
unbridled
impossible.
fury. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think what I realized is, okay, I just kind of have to intentionally distract myself. I have to do other things right now. I have to find something else that's going to capture my attention in a positive way, which
Mm.
could be listen
So
to.
what was it? Like specifically, I'm just curious.
I
Like
mean,
what?
it was do some Dungeons and Dragons
Okay,
stuff.
okay, cool. Because it's your go-to. It's your go-to thing that you
Today,
know that
that's
makes
my
you feel
go-to.
good.
Yeah.
And I remember when I started practicing this, and then I would share it with clients. It was like, tell me 5 things that when you think about them, you almost
Yeah.
always feel positive emotion. You just feel good about them. And so I remember just like driving, and then and if I was in like kind of a funky state or whatever, I'd be like, okay, Steph, tell me like 5 of the things that you feel good about. And they were always like the ocean,
Mm.
pine trees, Tiger, my neighbor's cat, who if you've been listening for the whole season, or multiple seasons, you know I love him. Music, and I think it was dancing or something like that. And so,
Mm.
and then I'd be like, okay, tell me about pine trees. Like, why do you love them? And it always, like, by the time I was done, I always felt a little better. And
Yeah.
but yeah, D&D, that's awesome. So okay,
Yeah.
so then
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
going back to, because I hear what you're saying. Like you went down that path, and 20 minutes later you realize like, oh my God. But I think what happens is the more and more, like for me, the more and more I practice this, trying to feel better thing, is like now I can sometimes notice the thoughts,
Mm. Yeah.
and I'll think a thought, and then I'll be like, oh, that didn't feel good. Okay. And then if I'm and it's rare because it just depends on what kind of mood I'm in and where I'm at and what I'm doing, you know. Um, but then I'll be like, oh, that's not an aligned thought. Oh, that's not
Mm.
true. It's not. It doesn't feel bad because it's true. It feels bad because my higher self doesn't agree with that thought.
Mm.
And I think that's where like getting to that point where it's not like the story like, oh, but then he said this and she said that, but blah blah blah. You know how we can get into those places where we're
Yeah.
like judging, and it's none of that. It's like either this thought is in alignment or it's not. Either this thought provokes positive emotion or negative
Yeah.
emotion, and that's all it is. And so
Yeah.
what I've been doing recently, because I have this life-changing event happening, is I've been going down the fear train of like, where am I going to live? Am I going to love it as much? Blah, blah, how is this going to happen?
So I went to Angry Town. You were going to Scary Town.
I took the fear train.
Which eventually goes to Terrified City.
Yeah, yes. And I'm like, and it's like, I'm thinking, oh my God, what did I do? But it goes back to what I've said, for quite a while now, is there are certain things, and I know this is for you and for everyone else, there's certain things that we just know it's going to be okay. Like we
Yeah.
just know like things are going to work out, or we just have no little, I think, because I've heard Abraham say it's because we don't have a strong emotional attachment to it, so therefore we're
Mm.
really neutral about it.
Yeah.
But then when we have like a really strong emotional attachment to something, then it's harder to have that like trust, or like, kind of neutral space about
Hmm.
it, because it's like they say, we got skin in the game. Like, wait a minute, like,
Yeah, and I mean, for me, that's why, there's times where I might have some negative feelings like, I don't know, sadness or pain or something around that because mentally, I'm telling myself a story about something I want, and I'm like something triggers me to, say things to myself, again, habit of like, I don't deserve this, or there's not enough of this for me, or whatever. Now, that could be something where I'm more likely to try to talk myself into a better feeling place about it, because that I've also learned of like, well, but the universe is abundant, and I haven't always felt that way, and it's not as bleak as I just made it seem. But that's sort of a different situation
And
to what
doesn't it
happened to
depend
me.
on where you're at though? Because like,
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
yeah, because I can relate to what you're saying, and I've been in the like even in this topic subject that I'm speaking of, I've been in those places where I'm more in alignment, and I can
Hmm.
have that conversation with myself. I was like, you
Yeah.
know what? Like, I was thinking, I had this download the other day that I had a condo which I loved. Well, the first time I walked into it, I was with a realtor friend, and I was like, "Oh my god!" And this and that. I was saying how much I loved it, and he's like, "Wait a minute, you haven't bought it yet. It's not yours." But energetically, I knew like this was mine,
Mm.
and so, and then shortly thereafter, I moved into another place, and it took me a really long time to have that place be mine.
Mm.
And I've been there for decades now, and now I absolutely love it.
Mm.
And so, but now things are shifting, and I may be needing to leave that place. And so I'm like, and then it was like, but Steph, remember you went from one place that you love to another place, and then you eventually really loved it, and now you may be going to something that you don't know what it is, but you could eventually end up loving it even more. And
Yeah.
so, um, so when I was in that more of an alignment place, I was able to have
Yeah.
that conversation and take that in and go, oh, wow, look at this. But
Yep.
when I'm feeling in a lower vibration, then it's like I can't even hear it. Like I
Don't
just,
bother. Yeah.
yeah.
And that's the thing. And I used to think, before I really, after I watched The Secret, but before I really had started to study Abraham's teachings, that was really a challenge for me, because I'd be like, I was sort of under the false impression of like, oh, well, if I'm thinking about something I want and I'm thinking negatively about it, well, then I'm just hosed, because I'm just attracting the opposite, and there's no way
Yeah,
out. And
yeah,
that's why one of the many major revelations I got from Abraham was like, oh, there's a way out of that, which is just ditch it. Like, stop thinking about that thing. If you're not in that place,
yeah,
if you're not in a good place where you can flip the script, you don't have to flip the script. Flip your vibration instead of your script by
yeah,
focusing on something else. And like, yeah,
yeah,
I love your list of like the 5 things,
yeah,
because literally, I think that's part of the magic. We talk a lot on this podcast about how sometimes the lizard brain, part of our brain that we talk about, is super unhelpful to the art of allowing processes.
yeah,
But one of the cool things about our brain is it can be triggered into positivity really easily too.
yeah,
Like, if you have a favorite song that, like, no matter what's going on, you hum that song and it makes you happy, like,
yeah. That's a
remember that.
great one.
Like,
That's a great
remember
one. That
that.
could be one
Yeah.
of those things. Yeah, one of
Yeah.
those five.
I
Yeah.
mean, I defy anybody to listen to "Let's Go Crazy" by Prince and stay mad or sad. Like,
Well, if they were mad, they wouldn't be able to hear it and they just shut it off.
right? No,
But
I'm
if they're
saying,
in a
like,
place
if you
that
listen
they're
to
even
all
close
three
to
minutes
it,
and 37 seconds
yeah,
of "Let's
yeah.
Go Crazy" by Prince, like, I guarantee you'll be in a better mood. But again, it's more powerful if you can identify. I think if you can identify, like, what's your "Let's Go Crazy" thing, or what's your
Yeah,
handful of things that, like,
yeah,
if you just focus on it for a few moments, your whole vibration shifts and you're in a better place. Because that's the thing that I didn't understand that Abraham explained, is like visualization of what you want, and specifically focusing on it, putting it in your vortex. That's an important part of the art of allowing. But you don't have to be visualizing exactly what you want all the time. Like, the
no,
important, basically, for the most part, you put what you're going to put in your vortex kind of once, and then the equation about, or the method of getting it from the vortex into manifested reality is just about, like, as you started talking about the early part of the episode, am I in a higher vibration,
or
uh,
alignment, just
and
alignment
it
with it.
kind of goes hand in hand with being in
Yeah,
alignment with my higher
yeah,
self, higher
yeah,
power,
yeah.
and I don't have to be thinking about that thing at all. I just have,
Well,
it's
we've
just,
talked stories about that on here,
yeah.
about
Oh
how
yeah.
we've all, you and I and everyone else have had experiences where we've gotten something, we received something we wanted, and we weren't visualizing it every day or talking positively about it. It
Yeah.
just, because we had no resistance about it, it came about.
I think as I think back about my Train to Angry Town story too, one of the things that's super helpful to understand is that, basically that story, in addition to what we've already talked about, includes the concept of momentum. Like if I'd been able to sort of see the suggestion from YouTube and go, nope, and like switch off at that point, I wouldn't have really attracted very much, I wouldn't have had much negative vibration out in the universe. But what I did was I followed a pattern which built up this sort of negative momentum for 20 minutes. And that's a much tougher vibration to counter,
Yeah.
But again, if you understand that, you can use that in the other direction. Like if you can shift your focus to be more in alignment and into a better feeling place, and then you can kind of stay there. Like if you listen to your favorite song and you listen to it all the way through, you'll feel better in the first few moments, but then after that, you're actually building momentum. Like you're building even better vibrations.
And that's what we want to do more and more often. And
Exactly.
I think we all have at some point is to, they say the better it gets, the better it gets.
Yeah.
If you start off having a good morning and then the afternoon is like really great and you're going to bed and you're like, oh my God, that was an awesome day. Like, I didn't think it was going to be, but it really was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sweet.
So briefly, how do you feel about the fact that this is our 80th episode overall and our first episode of season 4 of the podcast?
I think that's pretty good. Like 80, I love 8 because 8 is a symbol for infinity, right? The infinity symbol is like a
yes.
And then it's 80. Wow, yeah, and pretty cool on the 4th season, our 80th episode. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm like, wow.
I'm excited too. I think that it's a good example. I mean, we've talked about it many times, but this podcast, neither one of us planned to have a podcast on.
It was in our vortex, though. I didn't realize it was in our vortex until after it happened, and then I was like, oh yeah, because I remember us sitting in your car.
Yep.
And you had a podcast. And you were interviewing.
Yeah, for the band. Yeah.
Yeah, for the little girl and your Only Human song and the experience we had in Old Town that day. And I remember we got done and I thought, oh man, I wanted to keep going. That was fun. And I think I left that experience thinking feeling like I want to do that again.
Yeah.
Not really consciously thinking I want to have a podcast.
Yeah.
And then I'm sure there were various other times in my life in the last 5 years or more where something similar happened.
Yeah. I think the other thing about it for me that hopefully the audience, listeners and viewers have experienced as well is that we didn't really have a plan of what the podcast was going to be beyond. I think we had one chat about it, honestly, outside of recording, which was just... we definitely want to talk about the law of attraction and the art of allowing. And then you and I both had a lot of friends or acquaintances, people whose services we've used multiple times, who are healers, energy workers, whatever, chiropractors, who we also wanted to talk to about the mind-body-spirit connection. And I feel like over the course of the first 3 seasons, we had a number of those sort of guests, and those episodes were all wonderful bursts of wonderfulness. I don't know, on their own.
People know, informing people what's possible and how you can get assistance and what it can look like and the benefits of it.
Yeah, but it's funny because I remember in the chat that we had about it, part of my motive for having guests on the show like that was kind of this feeling of well, geez, Stephanie and I won't be able to fill a whole episode every week about just the art of allowing and the law of attraction. I mean, we're going to need all these other people to come in and talk about other stuff.
Help.
And then my sister, who's been on the podcast many times as a guest, and who listens religiously every week and gives both of us feedback on the episodes. um, brought this thing to our attention of like, oh, like as wonderful as a lot of the special guest episodes are, they are kind of this outlier. They're a vacation. They're a one episode vacation from what we normally talk about, which is solely focused on the law of attraction, the art of allowing. And like we never would have known that had we not just kept doing it every week. And then that just sort of naturally came out of, just continuing to show up every week and just like, enjoy what we're doing. And now it's like, now I can kind of see like, oh yeah, like on the one hand, and Abraham talks about this, about how like we said everything about the law of attraction you need to know back in the 90s, and now we're just been for years we've just been saying, and that's kind of what we do here. I mean, it's like some of the concepts we talked about today, I mean, you'll hear those in season 1, you'll hear those in season 2, season 3, but I think the thing is like most of us have an upbringing where this is such new information, or it's a new approach to your thinking, that it's really helpful to listen to a discussion on a regular basis. Like, I know you've done it, I've done it. I had a time where I listened to an Abraham Hicks workshop on YouTube, just the audio, every morning when I was driving to one of my day jobs here in Los Angeles. And it really helped like reprogram my mind.
Oh my gosh, me too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so it feels really good to be able to, this podcast just sort of naturally evolved into being able to give back in that way and help other people, just have like
I think that for me was what I had put in my vortex, was that I wanted to share this art of allowing and this way of being, and empowerment of these practices with others. Like I really wanted to have a platform of where I could share it with more people.
Yeah.
And I think that's unbeknownst when we first started. It was like, I don't know, a month later, I was like, oh my God, like, or however many episodes later, I was like, holy cow, I wanted to be able to do that. And here, this is that opportunity. And like you said, it wasn't like we set out, like, made a goal and, here are the steps. And it was just so organic. And that's kind of how I roll. I'm more on that, like, where it's just like be in that allowing place and then let higher power do the rest. And as I say that, I'm like, okay, Steph, that's what we're going to do with this situation now too. And I need to say, I don't know if any of you, or if you can relate to this, Collin, but I wasn't feeling that great when we got into friend time, and each moment I felt a little better, and I feel a lot better right now as we're ending today's podcast. So I think that momentum of not focusing on the problem, but just shifting the thinking into something that feels a little bit better.
That's the thing. I think, I try to talk about myself as often as I can, not talk about other people, but I feel like I just have talked to a lot of people who empathize and struggle with the same thing of like, we just have had an upbringing as a younger person where it's just sort of like we were taught the opposite. We were taught to think and believe the opposite of the way the art of allowing actually works best. And for better or worse, American culture in this day and age sort of reinforces a lot of the wrong way, to approach things. There's a lot out there that you can get exposed to like kind of, again, like we were talking here today, cause you negative emotions, get stuck in patterns of, feeling bad and try, and sort of just by default attracting things you don't want into your life instead of attracting what you do. So I think it's super helpful for me. I've known for a while, I've been teaching for years in various capacities, various positions, roles, whatever. And I always feel like teaching is a cheat because you get the benefit of sharing your wisdom from others, and that feels very good. But you also learn the stuff way better by talking about it and teaching it. And I've known that like this rewiring my brain thing about how the art of allowing really works is a lifelong project.
It's not like a one and done.
It's just
I brushed my teeth once, I never have to do it again. It's like, how's that gonna work for you?
It's like renovating
the same thing.
It's like renovating a gigantic mansion. It's like, oh yeah, we've done 8 rooms, 103 to go. You know.
And first thing in the morning, that's like when I was saying I was making breakfast,
Yeah.
and I put Abraham on because I was like, I need something to like lift me up and change my focus to something that feels better, and that's always
Yeah.
a win.
And finally, before we close, I want to give a special, focused shout out of gratitude and appreciation to all the folks that have listened to and watched our episodes over the first 3 seasons, and have shared with us, through various means of, the fact that they've enjoyed the show, especially my sister Kelly, and our now mutual friend Sarah, who I met through you, who's a loyal listener and watcher. And
thanks, Kelly. Thank you, Sarah. And everyone on the East Coast that is listening to us regularly. Yeah. Everyone everywhere. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We really appreciate you listening.
And my friend Jacqueline here in LA as well.
Oh, yes. Hey, Jacqueline.
Listens every week and has shared some really great feedback with me.
Thank you,
about the show. So, yeah.
Yay.
All right.
Round of applause for all of our listeners.
Yeah, everyone, you're awesome, and we're just so grateful to you. Thank you so much. We love you. We love you. We love you. We're so happy that you joined us today for the first episode of this exciting new season. Remember that right now we're posting a brand new episode every Monday morning. Subscribe to us, follow us so you can get the notification for that episode. We truly appreciate you doing whatever your platform allows you to do to support the podcast. All of it helps other people find us, and that makes us all super happy here. All our social media links and our email address are in the description on the YouTube video down below. If you're watching us there. We wish you a happy, joyous, and abundant week ahead, and we look forward to you joining us again next time on episode 2 of season 4 of Co-Creation Station. Bye, everybody.